Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions and the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. In this episode, I interviewed Jess Birken. Jess is an OG user of the subscription model, founder of Birken Law Office, serving nonprofits, and has a newsletter for attorneys called Hack Your Practice. She is a true pioneer in this space, and I was lucky to have her on my show. After we wrapped her interview, she shared with me her engagement agreement, which was a huge help for me to found Subscription Attorney LLC, and I can't thank her enough. The sponsor of this episode is 650, a business and employment legal document automation tool. When you're not billing by the hour, efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. You can get 10% off when you use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at checkout in their document marketplace. For a 650 subscription, tell them that Law Subscribed sent you to get a 10% discount on your annual subscription. For me to make a personal introduction between you and 650, click the link in the show notes called Get Connected with 650 and enter your contact information. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. Jess Birken, so good to have you here on Law Subscribed. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I couldn't be happier to be here.
I bet. Nothing like appearing on a brand new podcast, but it is about something I think that matters to you, like it matters to me and some of the other guests I've had on the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, so I'm Jess Birken. I have a small practice where I help nonprofits, and I am currently sitting in the gloriously Arctic Twin Cities of Minnesota. So yeah, I help a lot of nonprofits with their startups, and I have a subscription plan for those clients, and I'm a little bit of a troublemaker.
And you do some other fun things, and you have spoken on this before, and I'm going to link to some of those talks that you've given so that any listeners could go listen to those if they want to hear more about you and what you do. You also do some things for lawyers too, if you have a newsletter for attorneys, right?
I do. I'm always trying to find the people like you and I, right? Because it can feel a little lonely out there if you're trying to improve your practice and you're trying to do things a little differently. It can kind of feel like, am I the only one out here? So I've got Hack Your Practice, which is just a passion project where I'm trying to create community and help other lawyers improve their lives and their law practices. And you can join my email list at hackyourpractice.lawyer. There's no sales. It's just me. I send you an email once a month and I tell you about something that's on my mind, and hopefully you write back.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a subscriber to that, and I was a subscriber before we were introduced by a previous guest that I had on this show.
Nice.
So I'm super excited that you're here for an interview. But how about you give my audience a little just a quick background on the origin of your thought process on you know what, I've decided to have a subscription model for my law practice.
So this is one of those things that, wasn't really a lightning bolt. It was sort of a gradual realization. But whenever I talk about this topic, I tell the story that sort of made things click for me. And it's really, the background is I had my own firm, and I should have been really happy about that. But eventually I was just feeling really miserable in my work. And I realized that my clients were not calling me, and they were bringing me these dumpster fire problems. And I enjoyed being in-house, and I enjoy being outside general counsel for my clients, and I enjoy preventative work. I don't enjoy the dumpster fire work. And so even though that's pretty lucrative, right? Somebody brings you a burning fire and they're just pour money on it until it goes away. That's a lot of people like to live there, but I don't. I wanted my clients to be healthy and grow, not waste their time. So that was one thing. And then I had this one pro bono client that they had asked me to be on their board, and I had just started my law firm, and I just was like, no, but I'll be your lawyer for free. And so they would ask me early and often all the time because there was no charge associated with that. And then I had one client where I asked them out for coffee, just like, hey, I haven't seen this executive director in a long time. I should like just take her to coffee. And I invited her to coffee, and she asked me if there would be a bill. And it was sort of like those three things. And in that moment where I got the email back from her saying, will there be a bill for this coffee meeting? And I was like, huh? Something's very wrong. And that was kind of the moment where I sort of it gelled, and I put it together that like, oh, I'm putting out dumpster fires because people are procrastinating calling me, and people don't want to get nickel and dimed. And the client that can pick up the phone anytime does so and avoids all the dumpster fires. So how do I just flip the script and make this somehow a better situation for everybody?
Yeah, yeah. One of the stories I heard, and I think it was like I heard it from someone who heard it from someone who maybe heard it from Jack Newton, I'm gonna shorten it here for the purposes of this show, but it's
Jack
basically
hearsay.
yeah, right, quadruple hearsay. So it's it's like the billable hour is like going to a restaurant, ordering the fish at market price. Oh, but sorry, we can't tell you how much it's going to cost until after you've eaten it.
Right. Exactly. It's like, who does business like that besides us? Like, no, almost nobody these
Well,
days.
like there are like some engineers or website developers or freelancers who will bill by the hour, but I'm since I'm targeting that community to provide affordable legal services through the subscription model, to them, I sort of learned that they are also burnt out on the billable hour and that
Yeah.
model as well. And so hopefully by serving them, so many people are leaving their jobs now with the great resignation, the great reshuffle. There's going to be more freelancers than ever. So hopefully there's enough clients out there that need affordable legal services. They'll see I'm offering a subscription and they'll think, hey, I should offer my clients a subscription too.
Right.
And then I'll have them on this podcast.
There you go.
Yeah. I got to keep it going. So, so another thing I've heard you talk about and I've heard you mention is, you did like a 30-second thing for a client, and now what are you going to bill them for 6 minutes? Because that's the smallest you can bill, and that's kind of how it came to me too. Is I have this one client in particular, small business owner. Would call me all the times. We had a pre-existing relationship before he hired me as an attorney. So what am I going to bill him for? Looking at a one-page document that took me 5 minutes to tell him, to explain it to him. Like, no, that's sort of silly. He brings me all this other business, but how can I capture those kind of things? Because he started to do it more and more and more and more and more.
And you're adding massive value, right? Like it may be almost nothing to you. You may be just like, yes, you need, for me, like nonprofits need to have meetings with minutes, and they don't know what they're doing because they're a bunch of people that are passionate about the mission. They don't know how to do meeting minutes. So I have a little template, and people will be like, I don't know how to do minutes. Can you help me? Yeah, here's a template. What? It took me 30 seconds. It was a template I developed 6 years ago. Like, but that's helping them. And there's value to me being able to shortcut that process for them, but I feel terrible about billing them for a 30-second interaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I've at this point I've interviewed a number of attorneys using the subscription model, and something that keeps coming up is sort of the ethics of it. And one of the things that's hard for the regulators to understand is this whole separating time from money aspect of it, where maybe as part of your subscription it's call me whenever you want, but if they don't call you that month and they paid you, is that an earned fee? Is it just the access that they're paying for? Like, how exactly are they paying for it, and how does that comply with your jurisdiction's ethics? But one of these things is sort of what you just mentioned, which is maybe they have access to this template as well. Maybe they have a database that if they're a subscriber, they get access to these forms, kind of a thing. So that's sort of if they never call you,
It
here's.
doesn't matter for mine. I mean, and this is going to depend on what people build, right? So this is an it depends answer, but
Mhm.
I'm not charging people an availability retainer with all of the like ethical things that come along with that. And I'm not selling them credits for lawyer time that if they don't use, they can cash it. No, they're paying me for access to my platform, and it has tons of intellectual property in it that they're basically getting a license to use. And then they have access to schedule calls with me, and that's almost like an afterthought, right? Like they're not paying me an availability retainer under my system. I can see a reality where, somebody might have a different structure, but yeah, like how do you monetize the like stuff that you can provide if you're a family law attorney? Maybe that's access to a great referral list or some like coaching with your paralegals or some getting stuff out of your head and onto videos that are behind a paywall or anything like that you can make. And that's just like not what we're taught in law school,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
people just don't think about it that way.
Yeah. Um, do you use or have you heard of anyone using this model, uh, also using access to like sort of customized or lightly custom legal information? Like for example, a client calls in with a question, and then you're able to sort of generalize an answer that's only available to your subscribers, kind of a thing.
Well, like my member platform has a knowledge base where I put, well, Q&A type things that are like, this is a question with a generalized answer. It's not customized to them. And then if they have a question that they want answered, they schedule a time for a call, and there's a box they can check that says, if you can answer this in writing, please do. And so then that also provides me with information about like this is what clients ask about, which informs the kind of stuff I'm going to put in the knowledge base. Now, obviously, I'm not going to put confidential client information in there for other clients to see. That would be a no-no. But it's easy to say, oh, people ask about things like this. I can do a generic Q&A about topic like this. And so you start to be able to like layer and add to your stuff that they have access to in that way, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's great. Do you do you use so like somebody's subscribing and they get access to your knowledge base, they get access to the IP that you're essentially licensing to them. They could schedule a call with you. Is that all just on a subscription basis? Do you do subscription plus flat fee at all?
Oh, that's a great question because one of the top things that people will ask if I'm doing a CLE on this, like immediately lawyers assume that you're including everything in the kitchen sink for one low monthly price. And it's like they get scared immediately. You don't have to do that. Like, don't worry. I was also afraid of going broke with this model and have thought about this. Um, so the way that mine works, which may or may not work for everybody else, is they pay a, a subscription fee that is a recurring monthly fee that covers the subscription benefits, right? And then if they need work that goes beyond what those subscriber benefits are, I will either I know this, I do it all the time. It's a routine, oh, we're going to amend your articles of incorporation. That's a known factor. You can buy it off the menu on the website. It's X price. Just put it in your cart and check out. Or it's like, oh, you have this like kind of weird squishy situation. I need to like figure this out. What does that look like to do the work? And then we draft a custom scope and we say, this is the scope of work. This is the cost to do the work. And then they put it in their shopping cart and pay for it.
Wow, Jess, put it in their shopping cart and pay for it. What are you, a law
Like
firm
a
or are
sweater.
you a
Yeah.
shop? I mean, is this the mythical productization of legal services that people have talked about?
I think it is in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must mean that then you don't only take paper checks to receive payment.
Oh my God. Here's the thing I will tell you at this point in however many years into doing this, the people that want to pay you with a paper check, there's always a problem. Like anybody that wants to pay me with a paper check, I'm just like, oh God, every time I try and take a check is the worst experience. The last time I tried to take a check for a project fee, they mailed me a check that wasn't signed. It's just like there's always some weird problem with the checks. And I have mobile deposit. It's not a big deal to put the check in the bank, but please, for the love of God, just put it in the Law Pay, put it in the WooCommerce, just pay me electronically. Yes.
So are you using ACH transactions? Are you doing credit card payments? And are you willing to give up that credit card processing fee, like I know many attorneys push back at?
Yeah, I would rather have 97% of something than 100% of nothing. And frankly, with the amount of like chasing around and invoicing and my staff following up and oh, the check wasn't signed and now we need to call them and we need to get a new one. Pretty soon I'm into that check paying Megan or Karina to chase it around for several $100s worth of their time that's being wasted. So I will pay the merchant fee every single time for the certainty of that money just being in my account, done, did, over, the end. Yes, I do not care. As far as what we're taking, I accept so I use Stripe as a payment processor. My site is built on WordPress with WooCommerce, and so that you need to have a payment processor. And so I use Stripe. I also have PayPal. Everybody knows PayPal. And for clients that want to hook up a checking account, PayPal is an easy way to electronically get into your checking account, right? And people feel comfortable with that. For folks that want to do an ACH transfer, I have a LawPay account and I will send them like a dedicated link. Or for some random reason, I'm putting money into my trust account, I will use the LawPay account that I have to get money into the trust and make sure those merchant fees don't get taken out of the trust. Let's see. I also will accept Bitcoin if somebody ever wants to pay me in it.
Though at least at the time of recording, it's down like 50%. So
I don't care. You can pay me in it.
Oh, yeah. There are now sites where you could buy like your domain, like your name.eth and dot whatever
No, just the Bitcoin.
Pay
Bitcoin only. No
okay.
ETH.
Okay. This is not a crypto podcast.
No, that's a different show.
Now you did touch on something a little bit earlier because that I want to go back to, and that is that you have your clients like check these check boxes and you do some tracking. So you may not be tracking your time like you used to, or maybe you are tracking your time. If you are, let me know, but you're still doing tracking. So do you want to talk about the importance of that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of like data and doing things in a way that allows you to pull out some data. But that said, I'm also like the worst, like Mary Juten is gonna like, kick me under a table somewhere because I'm not really doing all the KPIs and all the stuff. But I am trying to input the data into the system so when we make decisions like about pricing or what should we change or what's the most utilized thing on the portal or like those kinds of things, I want to know that information when we want to access the information. I do have some KPIs, but I'm just like, that just doesn't light a fire under me. So it's just hard for me to actually keep up on that stuff, to be honest. But yes, like everything that I can do electronically or in a way that like creates an Airtable record or somehow generates a report later is to the good in my mind.
All right. So you've mentioned WooCommerce, you've mentioned Airtable. Are you sort of cobbling together like a CRM? Do you use like a CRM to track this data and this information about clients?
Yeah, so I love Clio. I used to be a Clio user, but once you get away from invoicing and billing time, it starts to be not very sensical to use a practice management tool like that. And what I really needed was the CRM and the project management. And I'm a big agile project management person. I am a student of John Grant at Agile Attorney, still do regular coaching with him, always adjusting our Kanban boards. So I wanted a solution that would take our Kanban boards, but also pull more data. And so Airtable is what we're using for that. And I've been super happy with it. It's kind of like, if you don't know what Airtable is, if you think of like Excel sheets, but better in the cloud, it's more like a database and less like a pivot table. I mean, there are a lot of math and formulas you can do with Airtable, but it's also really great at tracking a process, dates, and things like that, which you need for project management. So we have an entire CRM that we have built in Airtable that tracks our lead pipeline. So, like our whole sales pipeline, client onboarding process, contacts management, and my situation being nonprofits, right? Like my client is the entity. And then I have all of these people that are associated with the entity, but sometimes those people go away or turn over, or maybe they're actually related to two entities, and I need to keep track of that. So Airtable really helps us keep track of all those things. And then whenever I do a call or something like that, I can like just directly type notes in. And so basically our whole firm like runs on Airtable and Zaps at this point, with, Zaps just connecting everything everywhere that we can.
Zaps is in Zapier.
Yes.
Okay.
Zapier. We can I just get upset with them. Why didn't they spell it with two P's? It should be Zapier, but their tagline is Zapier makes you happier.
Right, right. Um, so a lot of it's hard to it's hard to talk about the subscription model for law and not also hear you list off a bunch of things that I'm sure you're paying a subscription for, unless there's
Got it.
free versions that you're using. So this is the first interview I'm doing this with, and that is what subscriptions do you have to help you with your subscription law practice?
Yeah. The thing is, like, there's not like one right way to do it, right? So, and then the other caveat I'll just say is that people start to hear me rattle off a bunch of stuff and they immediately get like overwhelmed and paralyzed and think like that's too many things. But remember, I've been doing this for like 4 years now. So you're not going to start with all the things. And I didn't start with all the things, and I've just landed here. So it's been a long process of iterating, and that's the best thing I can tell anybody that's getting into this space is like, you're going to think you've got it figured out, and then you're going to realize where it's broken, and then you're going to fix it, and then you'll find something else. And that's normal. So at this point, what I'm doing is the subscriber portal is built on a WordPress website that is running WooCommerce with the storefront theme. So everything happens behind a member login, and everything happens behind the paywall on that site. So I don't need to worry about like SEO or whatever, right? That's a core feature of my platform, is the member portal. Within that, I am also using document automation. I used to have, so this to my point about iterating, right? When I first started out, I was like, well, I can make these like Word forms and make them like forms that are locked except for these fillable fields, and people can just download them. And that's pretty janky. So now we have updated our system where we're actually using document automation, and we use after pattern. And so every document that used to be a download is now an app where the client logs into the portal takes them to these different apps. It knows who they are. It fills in information for them, maybe asks them a few questions like, oh, you want to hire an independent contractor. Do you want to call them a contractor or a consultant? And then it will update the document according to their choice at the end when it spits out. So that's been a huge like level up thing recently. The other big piece that I use is acuity scheduling. because in order for people to have unlimited scheduled calls with me, they need to be scheduled and not by a human, because that's too expensive and takes too much time. And it's also not convenient because Megan, who works with me, is not available 24/7, but Acuity scheduling links are. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's really losing sleep worrying about something at 12 o'clock at night, they know they can click the link and find a time on my calendar. And Acuity helps me limit what times are available, right? So it's not just like a free for all. So that's a huge piece of my subscription, and that's a subscription that I pay for, Acuity scheduling. And then what else? We got the payment processing. We've got Zapier, which you can get a free account to only have 5 zaps, but I have probably like 92. So I pay for Zapier. There's so many things. Airtable. I use Airtable. We use ActiveCampaign because I automate a lot of emails. So if somebody purchases something from me, they get an email that says, "Hey, great, thanks for purchasing. Here's your homework, the information we need to collect from you to amend your articles of incorporation. Click here." And then that takes them to a Jotform. And I also have a paid subscription to Jotform, which is available for free, but I have too many for a free account. So I use Jotform for collecting some information. There's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. That's like not even everything, but that's a lot of the main things.
Yeah. And there are many versions of these kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So I think Typeform is another kind of like
Typeform,
like Jotform, and I suppose there's Google Forms, which
those are garbage. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's a free version. That's a free thing if you're already paying for it.
There's like no dependent logic that works though. It's like very basic.
Is it? I assume maybe Google Workspace or Microsoft 365.
I'm a Microsoft person through and through. Google can go to hell. I mean, I love Google. That's great, but not for my business. I want to use Outlook. I want to use Office. I want to have full versions of Word. I want styles. I want real Excel. I want real PowerPoint. I don't know. I tell my daughters in high school, and of course, everything is for them is all Google stuff. And I'm like, we need to get you a real computer so you can use real software.
Well, I'm a Mac guy, and so I much prefer Google Workspace. But I'm just pointing out that that's another subscription, Microsoft 365.
Absolutely.
Which is, as far as subscriptions go, probably the best value that you could get.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Teams, just being a part of that is worth it. I mean, there's so many, you get so many things. Power Automate, are you a Power Automate user?
No.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing about Microsoft is like it's too hard to use most of its stuff. It's not intuitive, right? Which is where Google has everybody fascinated because they make the UI really easy. But Microsoft is just so janky.
Well, okay, so here's another potential subscription. You have something too, and that is a PDF editor. Do you use any like PDF editor that you have to subscribe to, Adobe Pro or Nuance?
I just on principle, Adobe annoys me with their expensive pricing and whatever. So I actually use Nitro PDF Pro. Yeah. That's my PDF editor of choice. And I do, because I work with the IRS, so there's plenty of PDFs in my world, but I don't feel the need to pay Adobe a monthly fee for PDF software.
well, so here's something that they offer incorporated with Adobe Pro, just for like the PDF version, and that is e-signatures. So then my next question for you is I don't know, in nonprofit practice, I don't know, do you need verifiable signatures for things that you use DocuSign, or you use one of these other subscription services?
I've been around the rosy on the e-sign. Of course, as a transactional attorney, I need e-sign, right? I mean, I guess you don't. You could just mail paper around like some sort of weird loser from 1992. But I, being a modern attorney using modern day practices, love e-signature. And then you run into the people who can't figure out how to sign something with a PDF. So it's just easier to deliver it in an e-sign platform. It's better for the client. It's easier for the client, certainly easier for your collecting the documents.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to use Right Signature by Citrix, which was great until they changed it. And I know some lawyers that don't like any e-sign that allows you to still edit the document. Like you could type on the PDF afterwards. They get very persnickety about that sort of thing. I never really cared about that because my stuff's not like Fort Knox required. I just want the thing signed. So now we use HelloSign. But what's funny about that is like the IRS doesn't really accept e-signature anyway. So half the time I gotta like print it out and like put blue ink over the person's signature and then scan it back in. But that's commentary on the IRS, not on e-sign software.
Yeah. When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional-only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSubscribed at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney, or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form at scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSubscribed at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice. But with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show. So here this brings in a new thing, which is something I've been researching recently as I get my subscription practice off the ground, and that is, the mailing things. Right? Do you pay a subscription for a service to handle your mail, of which there are a few of these things out there where you don't actually have to have a printer, you don't actually have to, print
Yeah,
things.
like Earth Class Mail or something like that.
Yeah, are you subscribing to anything like that?
Do you need to mail stuff? I mean, my take for mailing is most lawyers mail a lot of crap that they don't need to mail. And so if I don't need to mail it, not I prefer, or I always did it that way, or I think my client wants me to, or it needs to be on fancy bond paper so I can justify my fee. Not that kind of need to send by mail.
Right.
But actually need to send it by mail. Then I have a PO box. I don't use a subscription for that at all.
Although you do pay a monthly fee for a PO box, I imagine. Or is it annual?
It's annual, and it's like a couple $100, and who cares?
Annual subscription.
And I do that because with the pandemic, we gave up our office. Mm-hmm. So I can't use my home address as my office address, or I would prefer not to. And certainly it's a little better to not to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm thinking more in the, if you have to send a demand letter and you want to send it certified mail so that the other party got it.
Oh, yeah. Then I just have an account at USPS.com and I use Click and Ship, and I just send it priority mail from here.
All right.
There is a mail service that you can sign up for that will drop single pieces of mail, which I have used and it's called Lob, L-O-B. Lob.com, and that's great for like verifying postal addresses too. So I do have some things where I send like a client appreciation thing, and I want to make sure like the address is correct, and you can pay a very small fee, like it's a couple of pennies per address just to verify addresses.
Yeah. So next I want to talk about the pros and cons of your experience with the model, and you've mentioned one of the biggest pros, which is what got you into it in the first place, which is now I could build a relationship with my clients because they're not afraid to call me. I mean, that's a big pro. A con maybe is I have to have all this technology and know how to use it eventually. Maybe there's free versions, I ease into it, but we just spent, 10, 15 minutes just going over all the technology. And I am a huge nerd, and so I see that maybe as a pro that I get to use all this cool tech, but I'd maybe put that under the con category for some, just listening in on this conversation. Is there anything else that you maybe want to highlight, some pros and cons given your experience with the model?
There's really no cons. I mean, I think the only con is you can forget to reassess your pricing.
Mm,
Um, but that's not really a con in the model. That's more like, hey, you gotta take time to do that periodically.
right.
There can be, I mean, everybody that's ever done a flat fee project has been burned. And so I think a lot of lawyers assume there's a big con in the flat fee project world where you're going to get screwed all the time. But again, that's a me problem where I, of course, I get hosed on the scope sometimes, but frankly, that's with everything in your business, right? You're going to like learn some hard lessons. And so I just sort of chalk that up to, oh, that's a hole in my scope. There's a massive hole in this scope. I really screwed this up. I need to do better next time. And that's the way that you get better is, watching the tape back and like playing the next game. So that's not really a con in my mind. That's just a periodic kick in the teeth to make you improve your process. And we all have that, whether it's like, oh, I should really have a clause about that in my engagement letter.
Right.
We've all been there.
And there's another good topic is the engagement letter or the representation agreement or whatever you're going to call it, because it's not a retainer, the
Right.
subscription model. How do you, if there's an attorney listening wants to go about doing this, how do they change their engagement process to make sure that they're protected, that they're not over-scoping or under-scoping projects?
So for the way my model works, and again, this may not totally apply to everybody depending on what you build, right? I could see a very like low tech kind of subscriber where maybe you're an estate planner and maybe, your subscription is really just like I keep your documents and I have like one webinar a month that you could go to and I meet with you once a year just to check in. That could be a very low technology subscription.
Mm-hmm.
And your engagement letter is going to look different than mine. My engagement letter is basically a standard engagement letter that acknowledges that they are signing up for the subscription and that there are terms of service for the subscription platform that they also need to agree to when they sign up for the subscription. And then we say, if there's like a specific project, it's like, this is the project you're hiring us to do, and this is the scope for that project. Any other additional work that you order from the firm will have a different scope with a price attached to it. And I make some, statements about we're always going to provide you with a scope and a price, and our pricing will be transparent and there is no hourly billing. I basically use my engagement letter as a sales tool because for me, I'm often not dealing with the person who needs to sign. Like there's somebody who's like, our nonprofit should hire Jess, and they're sold, but they have to bring it back to their boss or their board or whatever. So the engagement letter in my firm is really an opportunity for me to like welcome the client, explain who we are, why we work the way we do. There's a picture of me and a picture of Megan and a picture of Jen, and like, here's who we are, here's how we are, here's our mutual promises to each other. And then some of the mumbo jumbo fine print things that you would always have in your engagement letter. But I really use mine as a sales tool.
That's great. Yeah, that's excellent. What have your clients thought about it? If that's the type of feedback that you solicit from them, presuming maybe they used to pay attorneys by the hour, like what's been the feedback you've received now that they're on the subscription or subscription plus flat fee with you?
So when I was first doing this, of course, I was like terrified to try it. And I had lots of hourly billing clients, and I wasn't going to just force them to do something else. That was way too scary of an idea. So what I started doing was I made my program, and then I had my engagement letter was like a choose your own adventure kind of a thing, where it's like, this is how the subscription works on one side, and this is how hourly billing works on the other side. And of course, it was very like, the subscription is amazing and it's so easy and wonderful. And hourly billing, every time you pick up the phone, I am charging you every second of every minute of, so it's obviously like the subscription is better.
Right.
But in a year I did that first year, I just let people check a box. Which one do you want? Which one? You just pick. I'll either bill you hourly or put you on the subscriber thing. Literally no person ever chose hourly billing. And so after a year of nobody ever choosing hourly billing, I was like, the market has spoken. Mm-hmm. I don't need to offer hourly billing. Nobody wants this. Nobody's like, that sounds awesome, but I'd prefer you to nickel and dime me. And I'm just cool with not ever knowing what the cost is going to be. Literally 0 people wanted that. So that was all I needed. And then I just stopped offering hourly.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's good to hear that. And I agree with it philosophically from my own perspective, but I do have one client who still wants to pay by the hour, a new prospective client, because other board members of this now larger company, used to be a small business, now it's a much larger business, they're used to paying by the hour. And so that's what they know. So if it's company funds, that's sort of that's not to say he's not going to hire me individually, for personal legal things on a subscription basis, but to convince the other decision makers at the company, they're just not comfortable with it because they've been in business for a long time and they're used to paying attorneys by the hour. So how do you handle, did you have to convince anyone to switch over? What was that process like?
So that's an interesting problem because I don't convince anyone. Mm-hmm. If they don't like it, they can go somewhere else. And I'm not saying that in like a snarky, like, screw you, just go somewhere else. I'm like, I'm not a good fit for you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with Seth Godin, but he's a big marketing person, teacher, in the space. And he's got a whole thing about, thanks for interacting with the work. It's not for you. It's okay. I'm not for everybody. Some people, some nonprofits, they want to feel like they're going downtown and they're seeing the big law and they have the big lawyer and they want a $700 an hour lawyer from a big, fancy firm, because psychologically that's what they want. And that's okay, because there's plenty of work to go around.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't need to be trying to bend over backwards to make myself fit this. Just go somewhere else. It's okay. I will take the next person who's very happy to work with me in the way that I'm working, and it's a better fit, right? If you want a lawyer that's going to wear a suit and be like, oh, statute 427 subpart B says, that's not me. I'm going to show up to our meeting wearing a hoodie. I might even curse in our meeting. Like, you can get a sense of my personality. And if I'm not for you, that's okay. There's somebody wearing a blue suit and a gray tie and quoting a statute that you can go work with. And that's going to make you happy. And that's going to make me happy to not have you here.
Good. So then sort of a follow-up to that is, so you have clients, they are subscribed. They like it generally, at least you think they do, because it's transparent pricing, and what sort of client doesn't like that? How do you incentivize them to stay subscribed? Is that a thing that you're trying to do, or it's, I've served this client, the terms of the subscription are up, good luck, or are you trying to incentivize, you should stay subscribed for X, Y, and Z reasons, and is that working for you?
So my churn rate is very low, which is great. I was expecting the bottom to just fall out with the pandemic, honestly, because usually like nonprofits are just going to like cut where they shouldn't in order to save a dollar. But to our previous conversation, I have a screening process that encourages the right kind of organizations to hire me, right? So I have like a scorecard, like I actually score the organizations on different factors, like whether they're a good fit. And if you're not a good fit, I don't offer you the subscription. So my churn rate's very low because I have the right fit customer. And I would say my practice, I mean, my clients could be subscribers indefinitely. That's not going to necessarily translate to every practice out there. There may be like a time delimited period where you're going to have a subscription, but like once their divorce is done and they're through the first year, 2 years post decree, why are they there? Right. So there may be like a drop off point that's just natural, which is fine. But let's just say you could have them subscribed for like 36 months at least. There's some science out there around measuring this. And Alan Rodriguez from 1-400 is a friend of mine. He used to be like in charge of the subscription services at LegalZoom. And he basically said the data shows that if you can get somebody to be a subscriber for 9 months, they'll just stay subscribed. So unless something happens that makes them angry, they'll just be like, this is just what I do now. So that to me is sort of my number that I'm trying to really make sure that they're happy and they're engaged and that I'm serving them well through that first year, because theoretically it just becomes a habit. That's just how they get their legal services from now on. So that to me is sort of how I address that, but I'm not doing anything ridiculous like sending people sets of knives and crap like that, right? Like there's some art to this that's not just like, don't just send people flowers, because then people are like, I'm paying you this money and I don't need you to send me flowers. Like I think the gifting thing is not necessarily where you want to go with the subscriber, but how do you cultivate the relationship? How do you add massive value that doesn't cost you your time? You know, how do you make it an enjoyable experience? If it's a crappy experience, if it's a negative experience, right, they're going to drop off faster.
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest problems I'm looking to solve, which I think you could launch a subscription model without what I'm about to suggest, but if you look outside the legal profession, you see these memberships are not just a subscription, but there's also rewards for, loyalty, for staying subscribed. There are rewards programs, loyalty programs. You could look at things like the Starbucks star system. They give you stars every time you buy a drink. I think that there might be a way for the attorneys launching a subscription model for their practice where it makes sense that people stay subscribed long term. Is there a way to do it ethically? Because of course we always have to worry about attorney ethics, where you could just give people a point system or something, or I wonder if there's a way to incentivize it with a loyalty program.
We're not selling $3 $4 coffees, right? So I think that's a different calculation. We're not selling a commodity. It's a service-based business, but I am not a marketing expert, obviously. I'm just a lawyer that dabbles. But it feels to me like I'm trying to position my service as a high value. This is a high value item. So I'm never offering like for a limited time only 50% off. I don't want to train people that this is something you can haggle with me on. This is something where you should hold out for a coupon. It just is what it is. You pay for it, you pay for it. Now, I do offer a discounted rate on the projects. If you're a member, the price is cheaper than if you're not a subscriber.
Okay, and so you do offer flat fees for non-subscribers if they want to pay for something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are some people that just aren't a good fit, or like, your nonprofit is dissolving. Join my subscription? No.
Right. Yeah.
We're
That.
just going to do the dissolution. You have this like defined thing you just want to hire me for. That's fine. But if it's like we do this for our subscribers or we do it for non-subscribers, the non-subscriber price is higher. But that's only communicated in that like initial sales process, and there's never like apply your discount code here or coupons. I'm not a discount service, right? Like this is a high value thing. So for me, I'm just like I don't want to train especially nonprofits to think that they should be like looking for a price break all the time, because my clients are already looking for a price break all the time.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in, especially like the access to justice, like providing affordable stuff area, it's going to be the same, right? So if you're trying to do this from an affordability factor, you want to position yourself as something that's high value, high worth, and they're getting an incredible deal by participating in it in this way, right? So that's for me where I fall on that.
Yeah, and I think, and I didn't mean to suggest like with Starbucks, you get stars, you get a discount on legal services. Though I think it's an excellent point that you made. That I don't think I agree with you that that should not be what the subscription model is for if it's going to work for legal practice. But I still think there might be a way to just have like a loyalty program, something where you're acknowledging, and it could be, right now attorneys, they send holiday cards, they send birthday cards, but is there some legal tech or some tech that can be built, or there's some membership platform that just helps you reward your clients for staying subscribed, to thanks for being a member. I think that there's something out there that can be built if it's not already built. I haven't found it yet.
We do that stuff through like mailers and things like that. But my take would be if there are high value, low cost items that, because anything you're talking about there needs to be like low cost to the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't that just part of the subscription? Like that's just a benefit. Well, so John Tobin and Chung, can't remember his last name, but they have Council for Creators, right? And so they have like monthly live Q&A or webinars where only their members get to join, right? But that's a benefit of being a member.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the loyalty thing, but it's part of the subscription. So I think a lot of it is just like, what can you offer that entices them to say this? I'm only paying, X dollars per month, but I'm getting like $1,500 worth of value out of this thing if I maximize it. That's the math I think we want them to be doing.
Yeah. I'm great that's where that question ended up. I think that's an excellent point to finish that on. Just one more thing I want to touch on with you is, because we are running out of time, and thanks so much for sitting down with me, is since I've been on this journey and talking to so many attorneys that are looking for a different way to practice law, it's, if you look at ABA data on the profession from 2021, maybe it's not as surprising, but it was surprising to me at first. But it's mostly women attorneys of color, women attorneys of color who are doing this thing, who are trying something new, and you look at the that report from the ABA, and it's like, oh, that's because the profession has failed these people. They're not leaders at big firms. They're not. Even though there are more women going to law school now than there are men, and so, I'm still trying to figure out like what is the right question to ask about that. But there's got to be a reason that this is more appealing to that type of attorney, and also to serve people maybe that couldn't afford legal services. So you mentioned like an access to justice part of this. So is that part of it, and is the subscription model really like one of the ways to solve that institutional problem? Of course, it's bad. It's a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, but it's a problem. And is the subscription model sort of a way out for the attorneys that the status quo, it's not working for them?
Yeah, those are interesting things to think through. I think Carolyn Elephant would say being solo at all and being your own boss is a way out, right? So you kind of have that going on where it's like, yeah, this system doesn't work for me. And, I'm a mom. The system does not work for me. The whole big law, churn, grind, a million hours, never see your family, be an alcoholic with anxiety. That just like doesn't work for me at all. But then you also have this other layer where you have to be entrepreneurial to do this. And so somebody who's like, I just want to do the lawyering isn't going to do this because it relies on you being business minded and thinking through things in a businessy way. And you can do that with tech or without tech, but like you still have to have that like entrepreneurial thing. And so I think what one of the factors is with the people that are doing this kind of a cutting edge in the legal industry model is they're looking at the rest of the business world and they're entrepreneurial people who are like, well, this bullshit over here does not work. And it doesn't work for me for X, Y, and Z reasons. And I would like to do something else and flip the script and combine that with their entrepreneurial side. Because there's plenty of like solos who have also said, forget this to the big law system or whatever, right?
Right.
But that handful of people that are doing this subscription stuff, they're also really clued in to like, this is what the business world is doing. This is like what literally everything in your checking account, when you go look at your bills, it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, like that's just life as a human now. And so they're making that connection and going, how do I make this work for me? So I think there's that entrepreneurial forward thinking piece too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So then I'll just leave it with one final question, Jess, and that is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
God, these are the massive questions of our time. Okay, a hot dog is not a sandwich. A hot dog is a hot dog, and a taco is a taco. A sandwich is a sandwich. I know there's bread involved, and yes, there's meat involved, but if you just had a bun with no hot dog inside, it would no longer be a hot dog. It's just a bun. So I'm going to go with no. A hot dog is not a sandwich.
Well, we'll see if that is the final answer for that question. But I know that's why people keep tuning back in to see what others have to say about is a hot dog a sandwich. So with that, Jess, thank you so much. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to talk about this more?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Jess Birken or message me or join my list at hackyourpractice.lawyer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for sponsoring this show. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with someone you think would find a value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.